The SEC just walked right into a trap. In a flurry of recent filings, the SEC just admitted exactly how they handled $15 million in seized crypto. They admit that these assets weren't sitting in an escrow vault, but were commingled and swept away in, quote, secondary transactions. Their defense? They argue Bitcoin is fungible, like cash, and the receiver didn't hold the specific coins. He only held, quote, a right to redeem them from Coinbase. If this is true, ask yourself, how can they blacklist Bitcoin? To the SEC, this is just normal banking. But the defense just filed document 164 and they're tearing this bank argument to shreds. They argue that the court-ordered escrow shouldn't be a simple bank balance. The defense says that putting $15 million of frozen court funds into a generic Coinbase account is the legal equivalent of stuffing cash into a non-FDIC insured checking account. The SEC says it's safe, and the defense says it's uninsured, commingled, and unauthorized. We're breaking down how the SEC's own admission in document 161 just might prove the defense's case for negligence, and a receiver who allegedly paid himself without the judge's permission. Let's jump into it. The SEC wants you to believe that escrow just means we know where the money's at. But the defense just filed a scorched earth reply in document 164, arguing that the receiver didn't just bend the rules, he broke the definition of custody itself. The court order required assets to be, quote, securely held in escrow pending further direction by the court. The defense argues that the SEC is trying to claim that a standard retail Coinbase exchange account counts as secure escrow. The defense dropped a perfect analogy showing just how dangerous this is. They say this is the legal equivalent of taking $15 million of court-ordered funds and dumping them into a basic checking account at a local non-FDIC insured bank. They call this constructive custody, not actual custody. It's a polite way of saying that the receiver didn't have the keys, he just had a login. And if that exchange went down, the money's gone. Now, the SEC might try to argue that crypto was a Wild West back then and that there were no standards. Wrong. In point A1 of the filing, the defense cites the custody rule. This is the SEC's own rule, 206-4-2. This rule is the gold standard for investment advisors. It requires a qualified custodian who segregates assets and doesn't mix them with others, has insurance against theft and loss, and undergoes surprise exams by accountants. And here's the kicker, Coinbase Custody, a professional vault service that actually follows these rules, already existed. It launched in July 2018, a full year before the receiver supposedly took control of the assets. So they had a safe vault option available. The defense is demanding an investigation into why the receiver ignored the compliance service and chose a risk-ridden, uninsured account instead. And they knew better. Exhibit A proves that back in August of 2019, they were discussing Gemini as a custodian because of these exact insurance concerns. The defense claims they objected to unsafe custody, yet without notification, the funds were switched to a generic, unsafe Coinbase account. But the most damning part is Section A2. The defense argues that the receiver effectively admitted to violating the court order. How? By admitting that the assets were commingled. The receiver's own declaration confirms that the Coinbase setup used, quote, secondary transactions to aggregate funds. The reality: within minutes and hours after the funds arrived, they were swept out of the wallet. The result? The assets became fungible. That means that the receiver didn't have a claim to the specific Ethereum or Bitcoin. He just had an IOU from Coinbase. And remember that checking account analogy? It gets scarier. The defense points out that Coinbase's insurance policy at the time had a massive hole. It had a $255 million limit on the entire platform, but it explicitly excluded coverage for individual account compromises. That means that between $8 million and $16 million of frozen funds were sitting at a location with zero FDIC insurance and zero theft coverage for nearly a year. The defense is asking a simple question. If the court wouldn't allow a receiver to put $15 million worth of cash in an uninsured checking account, why is it okay for crypto? Now, if the custody negligence doesn't make you suspicious, this next part definitely will. In a receivership, the rules for getting paid are strict. The court order in document 51 says clearly, all applications for fees shall be made to the court with notice to defendants and an opportunity to be heard. You file a motion, the judge reviews it, then you get paid. But in document 164, the defense drops another bombshell allegation. Quote, Mr. Dewey paid himself without filing appropriate motions to the court. The defense says that they reviewed the entire docket from the beginning of the case until today, and there are no record of these fee applications. Instead, they claim that the receiver, this would be the law firm Holland & Knight, Ex-SEC Chair Richard Breeden's RCB Fund Services and others submitted a single-line bill for nearly $1 million in services with zero explanation. Let that sink in. A single line item, $1 million, zero explanation. And they already paid it out to themselves without the court's permission. The defense argues that this kind of billing isn't acceptable for a standard attorney fee application, and it definitely isn't acceptable for a receiver managing frozen assets. The defense is asking for a special master not just to audit the crypto trail, but to answer for these violations. Why was a safe vault ignored for a checking account, and who authorized the $1 million in payments? The SEC is basically saying, move along, nothing to see here. And the defense is saying, we got the receipts and they don't match the court orders. Okay, hold on, stop the video. Unfortunately, we have some breaking news that's going to change everything that we just talked about. Judge Scanlon just issued an order striking document 164 from the record. Why? Because of a procedural technicality. The judge ruled that replies are not permitted on letter motions without permission, and the defense didn't ask first. So because of that rule, the reply is stricken. And the defense's attempt to object to the accountings was also denied. And it gets worse for the defense. The judge agreed with the SEC and lifted the stay. She ruled that the motions are now fully briefed and she's ready to decide. This means that the court is about to rule on the special master and the Treasury payout without officially considering the explosive evidence in document 164. The defense may have just lost their biggest weapon on a technicality. Will they file a new motion to get this evidence in, or is the check already in the mail to the Treasury? Subscribe to find out what happens next, and as always, thank you for the support, and I'll see you guys next time.